Alright, so I'm back with another Road to 2200 game. So we're currently rocking with a 2148 rapid rating. I believe in between one of these last couple games, I got a rating increase because I had played a cheater also. I think we started this series around 2090 or so, and we're at 2148 right now. We're still unbeaten so far, even though this game I totally should have uh, been crushed out of the opening. So this is definitely not the best game. This game was an absolute roller coaster, and I was pretty much lost early on. But let's just jump right in and see what kind of mess this game was. So d4, knight f6, c4, d6, knight c3, knight bd7, and e4. So he's going to look to play an old Indian of some kind with pawn to e5. And then I go d5, he goes knight c5, pawn to f3, pawn to a5, stopping me from going pawn to b4 and kicking his knight. And then I go bishop to g5. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I had no idea what I was doing against this opening. And I was really kind of confused by his opening play, and I really didn't know what the optimal setup was. I should probably just go bishop e3, but I played very, very aggressively, and it backfired immediately in this game. So he goes bishop to e7, and I go pawn to g4, and my idea is, okay, I'm going to go g4, h4, and I'm just going to rush him like a typical King's Indian, where uh, black develops, or white develops this dark square bishop, and then, this is normally a decent plan when f3 and g4 is uh, interjected, but here, unfortunately, I just completely overlooked this tactic. Knight takes d5. The idea is if I take this knight, that won't stop glitching out with a brilliant move. Then he takes my bishop on g5, and if I take the bishop on g5 or bishop on e7, he takes back on e7 with his knight. So that's what we have in the game. So now I'm just down a pawn, a clean pawn. And I have weak dark squares now because I don't have a dark square bishop, and I'm just moving all of my kingside pawns, so I have a weaker king also. So I just continue with h4. He goes knight g6, h5. Obviously, the knight's going to f4. I'm already feeling the pain of not having a dark square bishop. I go knight h3 because I desperately am trying to trade off this knight, or I'm trying to get rid of this knight on f4. That's kind of a thorn in my position, and I'm kind of surprised he didn't go queen to h4 here because this looks very, very unpleasant for me. I guess maybe it's not so bad, but it looks extremely scary, and I'm surprised he didn't go for it. Instead, he goes queen f6, which is a bad move because it just runs straight into g5. I think better would have been either queen h4 or just trade here, or maybe drop the knight back to e6 and try and play knight d4. But in the game, it was queen f6, g5, queen back to d8, and then I take the knight and play rook g1. So the engine doesn't like rook g1 because h6 kind of undermines his pawn, and then if I take or play g6, then queen h4 check is kind of a pain. Then I have to move my king. So rook g1, it makes sense because I want to defend this pawn, but something better would have been pawn to h6, and then if queen takes g5, then I can maybe develop some sort of counterplay with knight to d5. But this is also kind of a speculative plan. Also, instead of h6, maybe I could try queen to d4 and target this pawn, and then maybe just look to get a quick castle in. Really hard to say. I think rook g1 is a pretty natural move. He goes c6, stopping my knight from coming to d5, and he wants to bring his queen out. I play queen d2, target this pawn on f4. Knight to e6, defend the pawn. I think it still wants h6 to try and play queen h4 or take this pawn on g5. But knight e6, castle queenside, queen b6. And I thought for a while here, I thought for over 2 minutes, I'm already down on the clock per usual. Play bishop h3, and he castles. And here I should just take this pawn. I'm not really sure what I was scared of. I think I just didn't like rook d8, but I think my position's just good after queen e5 here. And I'm not down any material anymore, and my position is kind of dominant, so I don't know why I didn't do that. And I'm threatening bishop takes e6 and queen takes f4, so I'm not really sure what I was thinking by not taking that pawn. There was a lot of not thinking in this game, so it only gets worse, I can assure you. Especially as the time gets lower, this game gets very, very terrible. G6 was played, queen to e3. He just wants to get the queens off the board, and I just take his knight. I guess I should probably take on h7 first, and then maybe insert bishop to f5 check. I'm not really sure how much of a difference that makes, but instead I just go and take this pawn on d6. He takes on c4, and I played b3. So I thought this actually might have some decent chances because I realized that the best move that he could play here is bishop to a6. And I thought that that was kind of a hard move to play. And I was kind of expecting bishop e6, and I thought I had some sort of counterplay here. But I played g takes f7, and I think this and g takes h7 are both reasonable options. The idea here is if he takes with the rook, he loses his bishop. So you can't take with the rook. If you take with the bishop, I think maybe I have some sort of h6 counterplay, and then maybe you have to go either bishop g6 or g6, and then something like rook to d7, or maybe rook to e3 and just go collect this pawn. There's really a few different things I can consider here. If he goes bishop g6, there's also just rook g3, defend this pawn. And I think my position is relatively stable here. I'm not immediately losing, I don't think. If something like rook a d8 is played, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, this isn't so easy for him because f4 and f5. I've definitely created some complications here after having a very bad position early on. So after g takes f7, he actually takes with the king, and I go f4 right away. He goes king to e7, hit my rook. I go pawn to e5, solidify my rook. I'm giving up this pawn on f4, but I want to take this pawn on g7, and that's what we have. Rook to f7, I take, king takes, and I go knight to e4. I guess now is probably the best time to just go back and take this pawn on e3 while I can, before this pawn becomes a problem. But I go knight e4, and I'm just looking to generate some sort of counterplay. The immediate threat, if he does nothing here, knight g5 is going to be winning, because that's a fork. So after knight e4, I thought for sure he was going to go rook to g8. That is by far the best move, and just look to one, stop this knight g5 move, but also just put the rook on an open file and develop some counterplay. And now this pawn is starting to be a little bit scary. In the game, it was bishop to d5. I play knight to g5 check. Once again, not the best move. The engine suggests rook f6 check, or maybe knight f6, but knight g5 check, king to e7, and I just take this pawn. I'm just going all in to take this pawn. And the reason the engine really doesn't like this is because it thinks a4 is just absolutely crushing to my position, because it is. It's totally crushing. If I take, rook takes, he's really just infiltrating. He's going to win this pawn, and then this pawn is going to be too quick, I think. And if I play b4, he's going to take on a2, and if I do nothing, then he's going to take on b3, and then his rook is going to enter, and this pawn is going to be a problem. So instead of a4, he tries to play rook h8, going to collect this pawn maybe. I think also rook to g8 once again would have been a better move to try and bring the rook down here and promote this pawn, but rook h8, a bad move. Knight f6 retreats my knight, and it defends this pawn, so rook h8 is a really bad move. Rook to f8 was played, and here I chose to take on d5. So knight takes d5 is actually not so bad because it's equal, and I'm actually fine with having an equal position because I have 57 seconds to 4 minutes and 44 seconds, and I was completely dead lost early in the game. But after, I guess the engine suggests h6 or king d1 to go collect this pawn, which I think actually makes a lot of sense. But I think his bishop is a very strong piece, and I wanted to get rid of it. And here I need to play king to d1. So he's threatening rook f1 and just promoting this pawn. And instead, with 50 seconds on my clock, I just quickly snapped off rook takes d5, and he's just completely winning after rook f1 and then promote the pawn. But he blunders here after rook takes d5. the blunder and then another blunder. So he goes e2, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'm back in the game. I can go king d2, rook f2, and then after a little bit of a time scramble, I just want to get rid of this e2 pawn. We get a simplified position. We get this position, and obviously this position is going to be a draw. I'm going to win this pawn. If he takes here, this is going to be a draw, and then he just takes here, and we're going to have just a draw. But he's like, oh, he realized, okay, I have 20 seconds. There's no increment. I'm going to try and flag this guy. So he's going to try and beat me on the clock. So we have an absolute time scramble that ensues. Just a blitz match right here, and then he blunders with king to e8. So to maintain equality here, you just got to slide the rook down here somewhere. Any one of these squares actually should get the job done. Just keep this king in front of this pawn, and then if I give a check on g7, you can go back to f8 and hit my rook. So he's trying to flag me. He has 3 minutes and 22 seconds, and honestly, I think he should probably spend a little bit more time here because I understand he's trying to flag me, but sometimes if you spend a little bit of time when you're trying to flag someone, it can really mess with them and make flagging them easier. So king d3, rook a1, and then rook g7. I'm just still running on just like almost pre-moves at this point, so I'm just giving some checks. I bring the king in here, and then he trades, which he shouldn't do. I think here he should just play rook h6 and try and pin this pawn, but I'm still winning in this case. It's just going to be a little bit more annoying. King d8, then I'm going to have to bring the rook over here, and then this should be a win. But after rook h6, maybe it would have been a little bit easier, but he makes my job very easy, and he trades on d7, and he probably thought that this is going to be a draw, but it's only a draw if it is black to move in this position, but unfortunately it's white to move, so I have time, and then I'm like absolutely just pre-moving, like time scramble, like trying to checkmate him, and then with 0.2 seconds on the clock, I deliver checkmate. So this was a very, very, very tense game. I should have been completely dead lost. I was like down a pawn on move 8 when he played this brilliant move, and then my position was very, very bad. And even at the end, it should have been a draw. In this position, he can just take my rook, and even after that, the position is still a draw in theory. But he was trying to win on the clock, which I guess I don't blame him for doing, but it backfired, and I'm still running through these rapid games with an unbeaten streak, which is pretty cool. I have played, I believe, this is the 9th game, I believe, with no losses yet. I think I have 2 draws and 7 wins. So I'm seeing some good rating increases, and hopefully I can keep it going on my road to 2200 and beyond. And I will see you guys in the next video.